I'm Efredara Muriuki Maina. I'm sure you're all wondering, where is this woman? In a jacket in the beach. But at least today we want to at least stop being too serious and focus on mental wellness. As you're aware, today's topic Thank you. So as I said, I'm really not in the beach. This somewhere actually read that the ocean has a sense of calmness. So I hope it will calm our audience today and it will keep you comfortable and engaged throughout today's session. We want to find out how we can deal with mental issues during this kind of crisis, during this pandemic. So just be engaged throughout the session, and we'll be happy to host you. And we hope that we'll be able to address any of mental health issues that you may have. So be comfortable, look for a sofa set somewhere, look for somewhere where you can relax. Please stop multitasking. I can see someone trying to open a couple of windows. Just focus at least on this particular webinar today. We're focusing on our mental wellness, mental health, and we want our members to be relaxed and to at least take some time to enjoy today's session, to learn about mental health. It's very paramount for any kind of productivity, or if we want to also build wealth wherever, whether it's physical wealth, whether it's monetary wealth. You all need a proper mindset. So I hope you will learn a lot from today's session, and we're really happy and honored to have experts in this particular field on mental health. We have a psychologist, we have a career coach, leadership, a motivational speaker. I believe motivational talk is also part of mental health. So we hope again that you'll really be engaged during this session. As I say, don't multitask. Take this time to actually empower your mind, to just free your mind, learn, and feel relaxed, be calm. We want you to be calm, cool, collected during this session. So thank you very much for joining us. I can see the attendees are streaming in, and I'll begin by introducing our panelists today. Is Victor Omollo. He's a career and leadership coach, trainer at the Peculiar People. He's a coach and trainer who has helped professionals and entrepreneurs gain fresh perspective to purpose, problems, performance, personal development, and positive progress in life and their careers. The zenith of his achievements is helping leaders and teams become proactive in terms of articulating and achieving their strategic goals. He has created platforms that inspire people to explore individual potential and synergetic collaboration possibilities. He's the founder of the Peculiar People, a company that supports professionals to cultivate better decision-making, embrace challenges as opportunities for innovation, and empowers entrepreneurs. Victor is a volunteer with organizations that have similar interventions, including the Synapis Group, Lapid Leaders, and Chisudi. And Victor's quote, he says that his favorite quote is, "You live most of your life in your mind. Make it a nice place to be." What a fantastic quote, especially for this session, that you live most of your life in your mind. Make it a nice place to be. I think we're in safe hands again, and he enjoys nature getaways. I think it's also a part of him trying to unwind and for mental wellness. I think we can learn a thing or two from that. Nature getaways, perhaps it's a way of mental wellness. So welcome, Victor. We trust that we learn a lot from you.
Good evening to you, everyone who has joined us this evening. It's an honor and a privilege to be with you this evening. That was a really, really refreshing conversation. I want to start with a metaphor. And in this metaphor, of course, you can see here what we have is an orange, and the orange is being squeezed. All right, so the orange is being squeezed, but as it's being squeezed, something is coming out. All right. So of course, some of you are a fan of orange juice. Some of you, of course, I can imagine you're beginning to think about orange juice. Maybe some of you are actually having orange juice at this time. But this is the metaphor. And I want to introduce you to just something, a taste of what Nancy mentioned in terms of taking care of yourself mentally. If you can, and if you're in a safe place, if you're in a safe space, I want to invite you to close your eyes. All right. If you're not driving or if you don't need to use your eyes at this particular point, I want to invite you to close your eyes, so long as it's safe wherever it is you are. And as you do, I want you to pay attention to your breathing. All right, just pay attention to your breathing and the sound of my voice. This is not an easy thing. I acknowledge that as human beings, we are cultured. Our mind is always racing. But as you begin to pay attention to your breath, what you're doing is you're teaching your mind to have self-command. All right? With your eyes closed, you're teaching your mind to trust, to say that it is okay, to trust. You don't have to see what is happening to actually acknowledge that everything is okay. So with your eyes closed and just paying attention to your breathing and listening to my voice, I want you to bring to mind something about this pandemic that has caused you stress or anxiety or distress. This orange is being squeezed. The one that you just saw a few minutes ago, it's being squeezed. What has squeezed you during this pandemic? So I want you to think about that for just a few seconds. All right. You may now open your eyes. And just to give you an overview, or just pretty much to confirm what Nancy took us through, breathing is a very healthy exercise. And sometimes when you do this, in the midst of everything you're going through, what you're practicing is self-command, to bring your mind to a place where it can be present, where it can be focused. Once again, Nancy already mentioned it. So you bring your mind to where you can be present. And if you're able to bring your mind to where it's present, like right now, I invited you to bring your mind to something that was squeezing you during this pandemic. If you're able to do that, then now what happens is you begin to practice how to bring your mind to a place where it's not affected by the constant chatter. We always have this constant chatter. And I can guarantee you right now, especially the ladies, stereotypically, especially with the ladies, you're most likely thinking about other things. What am I going to have for supper? What is my child okay? What am I going to do after this? You know, you're already thinking about other things, and that's okay. It's okay. It just shows how sophisticated your mind is. Your mind can do multiple things at a time. All right. So as far as helping you to manage mental wellness, and then also to bring you to a place of self-awareness, bringing your mind to a place of calm is one of the ways to teach your mind to be present. And when you're present, you're able to deal with what is at hand. So for example, in this metaphor, the orange is being squeezed. It could complain about the pain. Hey, I'm being squeezed. This is uncomfortable. I don't want this. I didn't ask for this. I'm just an orange. You know, I didn't ask for any of this. But if it just came to a place of awareness, it would say, hey, you know what? I am being squeezed. It may be uncomfortable, but look, I can actually have two forms. I can have more than one form. Consumed as a fruit, you know, so that someone would need to chew. Or if someone is thirsty, I can still offer them an alternative. So when this orange in this metaphor comes to that place of just shutting down the constant mental chatter, it's able to observe what's happening here. Yes, I'm being squeezed, but in the squeezing, there's something else that is coming. So we'll talk about that in terms of what do you notice as far as, when you're squeezed, when the orange juice is being squeezed, when the orange is being squeezed, orange juice is produced. And when you are squeezed, what is being produced? This crisis has squeezed you. What has come out? What do you notice? Is it stress? Is it anxiety? Is it love? By the way, it's not only bad things that come out of a squeezing. Even love can come out of a squeezing. And we'll learn about that as we move along. So that's the metaphor to get us started, just to understand that there is a place that we can come to and be observant. I like this quote by Anais. She says, "We don't see things as they are, we see things as we are." Now, this is one of the foundations of self-awareness in times of crisis. We don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. Which means, if you really think about this, it is not the crisis, but it is our translation of the crisis that makes the crisis either a crisis or whatever else it may be. Situations don't come labeled. They don't come with identities. It is our perception of the situations that give them a label. All right. So during coaching sessions, one of the things we do is that we are able to help people to break down and detach all the judgments that they may have had on the situations that they're going through. And then step by step, we're able to uncover and say, what does this reveal about how you're seeing this scenario, how you're seeing this situation? So let me give you an example. This statement is very deep. It has very many implications, but I will zoom in on today's discussion, which is the me only this crisis can reveal. So when this crisis came in March, one of the things that got me concerned is, will we be okay? And one of the things that got me frustrated is our leaders are not doing enough. They should be doing this, they should be doing that, they should be doing the other. So if I bring this statement into perspective, what does it say about me? We see things as we are. Basically, in one aspect, I like order, I like leadership. And that's why, I was bothered by the kind of leadership that I was seeing, and not just in our nation, but globally. I was bothered by how some leaders were dealing with this pandemic. It's because leadership is at the core of, what I do. The other thing, just to bring it closer home, is because I'm a husband. As you heard in the introduction, I'm a husband and I'm a father. And I love my wife enough to protect her even from such things like this pandemic. And that's why I was a bit stressed, because if no one else is doing something about it and it's coming closer home, I am bothered because I want to keep this as far as possible from my family. So what does it reveal about me? I'm a concerned husband. I'm a concerned father. All right? So some of these things, they don't need to take us on a wild goose chase and, just go scared or have panic attacks. But it is simply to observe and find out, why am I feeling this? Why am I feeling this? If, for example, you're passionate about investment, if that's your core, I am sure you have been bothered by how, some industries are working, or how some charts are flowing and things like that. You will find something that is bothering you based on what is closest to your heart or what is being threatened. So if you have fear, for example, that is a signal. It is not necessarily a bad thing. It is simply a signal to alert you that, you know what? There's something that you need to address. All right? And now that something has to do with who you are. For example, I mentioned leadership, as something that, came out as I was able to understand why am I bothered by leaders and how some leaders are responding to this, yet some leaders are doing very well. And it is simply because leadership, as I said, is at the core of who I am. All right. So let's take this a step further. I want to now teach us how to observe. So if you can be able to see this image, there is a, if you can, it's raining, evidently, as you can see in this image, it's raining. And, there are cars and there's someone actually cycling. So for some of you, if you just take a moment to absorb this and try and imagine if you're here, for some of you, you would shelter. All right. Some of you would prefer to be in the car, in this red car. For those of you who are adventurers, you wouldn't mind being the one cycling. All right. So the idea here is observe what's going on, what's happening here. All right. And the idea is it's raining and it's raining on everyone. Why do you prefer to be at one point and not the other? I'm sure if I was to ask, if you were to do another poll, you would find that there's some people who don't mind walking in this rain. And there are some who they're like, no, thank you. I'm fine being in the car. I'm fine being inside. So as it's raining. So that is the invitation to observe. But as you observe, this is how you can observe. You want to distinguish between what's happening to me. All right. What is happening to me? What is happening to me is external. You have little control over it. For example, we had little control over what was happening or this pandemic coming. We had very little control. That happened to us. So you want to be careful to distinguish what you're observing. So observe what's happening, number one, to me. All right. And then the other step is what's happening in me. Now that is where self-awareness comes in. What is happening inside of me? It is raining outside, for example. What's happening inside of me? If you take notice, or if you observe, when it rains, I don't know if you've noticed, some people wear gray. Maybe you are one of those people who wear gray when it's raining, all right? Or some people's moods shift. It changes because it's raining. So the rain is happening to them, but what's happening in them is now beginning to reflect what's happening outside. What you want to do is to distinguish between what's happening to you and what's happening inside of you. All right? What's happening to you could be a pandemic or the effects of the pandemic. What's happening inside of you could be fear, anxiety, stress, or any other things that may surface as you take just time to analyze what's happening in me. Initially, I asked you, as we started, I asked you to take notice of what's one thing that has quizzed you in this pandemic. That's one of the ways in which you can begin to understand what's happening inside of me. Now, I want to give you some stories to just help you put two together in terms of what's happening to me and what's happening inside of me. So for those of you who remember the character Superman, one of the actors of Superman, if you can recall the movie Superman, there was one of the characters, his hobbies is horse riding. So one time he was just, doing his hobbies, horse riding, and he fell off the horse. And unfortunately, he was paralyzed from neck down. He was paralyzed. And because acting was his career, many people thought, hey, this is bad. This is a bad thing that has happened to you. And they wondered, is this the end of your career? But for those of you who recall and are familiar with his story, before he died, what he actually did is that he started a movement. He started a movement that would make sure that everyone who with spinal issues would access healthcare, because he had the money to take care of himself, or rather to afford the medical care that comes with spinal injury and other such complex treatments. He had the resources to be able to take care of that. But now that he was in it, he realized not everyone can be able to afford that. So what he did, he started this organization that helps people to access medical care, people with spinal issues to access the medical care they needed. And in an interview, now when he was paralyzed, there was a time he was interviewed and he said, if this was to be done all over again, would you erase the accident from your life story? And he said no, because he discovered who he was. He was not just an actor, but he was an advocate, because now he advocated for the rights of people who didn't have the resources. He was an advocate. He discovered something about him that he wouldn't have discovered if it were not for that crisis. All right. I'll give you another story. Now, this is the story of farmers in a particular town, and what they were known for is growing cotton, and cotton farming made them rich. They were very rich because of the cotton farming they used to do. But at one point, there was a weevil that came. There was a particular weevil that came, and it just destroyed their crops. Massively destroyed their crops. And of course, it meant that season they didn't make the money that they needed. So, of course, they had two options. They could just give up, or they could think of something. So apparently around that time is when groundnuts, the uses of groundnuts was also being discovered, and there were like over 300 uses of groundnuts. So one of the pioneering scientists who found out about groundnuts and the various uses told these farmers, hey, why don't you consider planting groundnuts? And to them, they thought, what, we have nothing to lose. Let's, we've lost our cotton, let's plant the groundnuts. And they did. And what happens is that they became wealthier than the cotton, than they were when they were, getting the cotton cash crop. They became wealthier from the peanut, growing of peanuts. So they actually put up a statue to commemorate this weevil that came to destroy their crops. And what they were doing is that they were acknowledging this boll weevil, this crisis. They were saying that this crisis helped us to discover that we are not just cotton farmers, but that we are farmers and we can be able to farm different things. And that town has been able to change, and they were able to now explore other things, not just peanut, they're able to explore other things. So these are just stories to help us to understand how we can be able to shift from what is happening to me to what is happening in me. We cannot be able to control what is happening outside, but we can be able to control what is happening inside. When we control that, we have a better awareness of ourselves, and we're able to act decisively, have laser focused action that is not impeded or suffocated by the constant mind chatter. What if this happens? What if this happens? How long will this last? These things, they come to affect our mental wellness, and they slow us down. We are not able to be decisive as we move along. But if we are able to have to have self-command of our minds, then it helps us to be to have focus and be able to discover something else that would have never discovered had it not been for the crisis. So as you begin to observe yourself, the invitation is to observe yourself, to be mindful of self. Do it with curiosity. Be curious. Now, it can be a bit dangerous here as you begin to observe yourself, because you can do it with guilt. Oh, I haven't done this, I haven't done that. By this time, I was supposed to be married, I was supposed to have my home, I was supposed to have bought my car. None of this has ever happened. And you can begin to beat yourself up. What we're simply saying is be curious. What can you find about yourself as you are observing, as you begin to be mindful of yourself? Be curious. What do you find? For example, you may find that, hey, you know what, I was able to become, even though we went through a lockdown. What does that say? So you be curious, be childlike curious. Just be curious. Don't put any filters that would make you feel guilty or, disqualify yourself. Then the next level is have self-compassion. Be human. Allow yourself to be human, because the moment you do that, what happens is, when you allow yourself to be human, is you acknowledge that I'm not perfect. And sometimes when these things happen, it's just that, hey, I failed. But just because I failed, for example, does not make me a failure. Or whatever happened to me, I had no control over it. So why am I beating myself up? So you begin to have self-compassion. Incidentally, there's a research that was done that says leaders, especially high management leaders, don't do very well with self-compassion. So this is something for us to be very careful of. You have self-compassion. If you have self-compassion, that determines how much compassion you will show others. All right. So have self-compassion. Just say, you know what, I failed there, or hey, I'm human. So it's human to be afraid sometimes. It's human to be anxious sometimes. So you, instead of beating yourself up for, hey, I should, handle this better, I should be in control, I should be, what that does is that it only adds on to the pressure that you may already be having. So self-compassion is where you allow yourself to be human. All right. Now, if you combine those two, it gives you something else. Action. What can I do? You begin by observing, and then you move into action. Now, move into action in the area that naturally flows. Let me give you an example. During this pandemic, I have done more virtual coaching sessions and webinars than I have ever done in my entire coaching and training life. And I've been doing this coaching for about 6 years now. I've been doing training for about 6 years. In the entire time combined, during this pandemic period, a few months, I have done more of that. So my action there was, I need to reach out to people. And it came naturally to me because I love doing this. I love encouraging people. I love giving people hope. I have found myself doing audios. I have found myself writing articles. This just naturally flowed. So you will find yourself, there is something in you right now. And I mean, take advantage. There is a dream that you shelved. There is something in you right now that it's been bugging you. And this is the opportunity to act. This is the opportunity to act. Maybe if you found yourself having a spare time in your hands because of the pandemic, take advantage of this time and act on that which is nudging at you. It could sound something small or something insignificant, but act. When you do, you discover something about yourself. Self-discovery, by the way, is not a passive thing. It is an active thing. So even in a pandemic, you may find yourself saying, you know what, I have extra bonga points on my phone, and I've always been thinking about, the lady who comes to do washing, or our, the guards at the gate, or there's just someone in your mind. There is something that we can be able to do. There is something we can be able to do. I will repeat that. It is nudging in your mind, in your heart. There is something we can be able to do. And in this time of a pandemic, then this is your opportunity to do it. All right. So it follows your curiosity about yourself, your self-compassion, and then you begin to act. Now, where do we go from here? We've talked about observing. We've talked about being curious, having self-compassion. Where do we go from here? We've talked about action. So this is very interesting. This depends on what you discover. As Nancy said, if you've discovered that, for example, I think I'm a bit anxious, or I may just need to get help, then you already know what you need to do. Get help. All right. If you have ideas, I've always had ideas on, starting something that would not restrict me, geographically in terms of reach. And here I am, on webinars. I'm coaching people virtually in different, places all over the world. I am acting on something that I had within because I was curious enough to find out, you know what? I'm still passionate about leadership. Despite this pandemic, I'm still passionate about leadership. And as far as self-compassion is concerned, hey, I'm human enough to be mad at some people. All right. I am human enough and it's okay for me to be mad. But I'm not going to stay mad forever. I'm going to be calm and I'm going to do something about it. So I'm doing something about raising the next generation. I'm doing something about it now. So what you're going to do from here, let this pandemic and this process of self-discovery be the compass that will help you to know, where do I go from here? The resource that you're getting from here, both from Nancy and myself, this is good enough info to lead you to do the right things that you need to do at this time. So where you go from here is based on what you discover. And I'm looking forward to you discovering, just going and finding out what's happening to me that is affecting what is happening in me. That's how we begin to discover. You become curious. And then whatever it is you find, you wrap it up, or rather you embrace it with self-compassion. You be compassionate with yourself, just enough to say, hey, I'm human. Don't beat yourself up, just have self-compassion. And then begin to write down, what can I do? Starting tonight, starting tomorrow, do something. Pick up that phone if you need to call someone, write that, whatever it is you need to write. There is something you can do. And in doing these things, you begin to discover a little more about yourself. So I will pause it at this point and, just remind you of the three things. Discover. As you observe yourself, do it with curiosity. As you observe yourself, have self-compassion. And as you observe yourself, have action.
Nancy Kabiru. Nancy Kabiru is a mental wellness champion. She's the founder and lead psychologist at ICIFA Psychology Consultants. She's a trained counseling psychologist, clinical hypnotherapist, and life coach. Nancy has a strong background in relationship counseling, family counseling, parenting counseling, drug and substance abuse recovery, suicide prevention, grief support, and self-esteem therapy. She specializes in providing solutions for organizations through occupational psychology and is highly skilled in providing comprehensive group therapy. We're really honored, and Nancy said that she enjoys being a mother and she also enjoys dancing. Welcome very much, Nancy, and we look forward to learning a lot from you. We're in safe hands, guys. Next is
good evening. Glad to be here. Diana, if you can hear me, let me know.
Yes, we can hear you, Nancy. Thank you.
Awesome. So I love having conversations, and I will ask Diana to stay ready, because every time I ask a question, I will require that you respond on behalf of the people who are with us on the chat room. Okay, Diana?
Yes, great, Nancy.
Sawa, sawa.
That's so, okay, I'll be happy. Hopefully they're not too tough questions.
No, they are easy. We are just going to have an engaging conversation. And the reason I do this is because a lot of time when we are discussing mental health, and in my practice as a psychologist, a lot of people shy away from coming on board, and they think it's something really massive or something scary, but it's not. So today I'm going to share my screen just in a minute, then I can start my presentation. Diana, let me know when you're able to see my screen.
Yes, we can see it.
Awesome, awesome. So I had 3 questions to address requested by ICIFA, and I know that you're a professional body and part of your members are people in the finance industry, and I am one lucky person because my spouse works in the very demanding industry that you represent, and I know the stress that comes with it. I have seen very many people go through anxiety, stress, depression due to the demand of work. Now I can only imagine, because of COVID, how it is for most of you. For those who are in investment field, how it is for you, because I don't know whether people are making savings, are reinvesting, or they are choosing to have their money liquid such that they can be able to access it when they have a need for the money. So the first description is what mental health is. We all need to understand what it is, because a lot of time we confuse what mental health is and what mental wellness is. So I will describe what mental health is and what mental health wellness is and what is a mental illness. So being mentally healthy, this is when you have a state of well-being where you're able to realize your own abilities. You're able to cope with normal stresses of life. That is, you're able to function at work, you're able to function at home, you're able to function even with your social circles. And you're also able to be productive and fruitful. You're able to make contribution in your own community as well. That is when we say you're mentally healthy. And this is almost similar to what we call physical health, because when you're physically healthy, you're able to function well, you're able to be productive. But when you're not physically healthy, then you're not able to be productive. So the same applies to mental health. When you're unable to be productive, then you're not healthy, you're not mentally healthy. Then a mental illness is when your condition, a mental illness is when this health condition involves changes in emotion, in your thinking, or in your behavior. That is, you're not able to regulate your thinking, your emotions, or your behavior. And these are associated by distress or problems in functioning in your social, in your work, and your family activities. So when you keep having anger issues, emotional outbursts, getting too stressed, then you're having a mental illness, because you could be having anxiety, you could be having depression, all this which need to be analyzed by a psychologist to know what it is you're going through. So what are the characteristics of a healthy person, of a mentally healthy person and a mentally unhealthy person? So we find that a mentally healthy person is one who is able to hold two opposites in their mind at the same time, meaning they can handle stress and they can also be able to be relaxed. They can be able to achieve targets, and they can also be able to set out time to do the things that don't require too much exertion at work. So this is when you're able to function the two opposites at the same time. Then the person is also able to manage their feelings while communicating, meaning they will not break down. They'll be able to articulate themselves well at work, at home, socially. They'll be able to say what it is they actually want without feeling overwhelmed or without feeling as though they are being unfair to you or to themselves. And this is also someone who is self-aware. They know what they are feeling, they know what they are thinking about, they know they are present at the moment. And most of the time we find people who are very good at meditating have a very high sense of self-awareness. Then this person also has comfort in their own skin, in their own identity. No matter what they are going through, they are able to be comfortable in their own skin. They are able to take risks, so they are always looking to achieve the next target or the next set goals. They are also less invested in being right. You know, they don't have a push to prove that they are right or that they have to be right all the time, because they know they are capable of doing what they are supposed to do. So they have no pressure within themselves. Then they have learned the practice of mindfulness. Mindfulness in what they do and in how they do it, in that it will not affect them and it will not affect the people around negatively. It should always have a positive impact, or it should always bring growth to you or to the person close to you. Then this person also has is able to work on their failure or their view on failure differently, in that it doesn't break their self-esteem, it doesn't break their drive, it does not define who they are when they fail, but they know they can do better and they're driven to doing that. So then a mentally ill person is the opposite of this. This is someone who has a personality change. All of a sudden, they have a personality change, and you cannot be able to understand them, or they cannot be able to understand themselves, or their mood keeps fluctuating such that you cannot tell who they are at any one time. Then a mentally ill person is one who gets agitated, or they seem uncharacteristically angry, anxious, agitated, or moody. So you won't, the trigger to the anger, to the anxiety, or to the moodiness is very little compared to the reaction. So this person, whatever the reaction has been, their response to it is massively abnormal. So this is someone who has a mental illness that is creeping on. Then you will find that most of the time, someone gets withdrawn, or they will isolate themselves from others. So they no longer enjoy people's company or things that they used to enjoy previously. So this is someone who has started developing mental illnesses. And it is good to check ourselves, especially now. What are the mood changes you've been going through? What are the things that you can be able to pinpoint? Because being able to pinpoint shows that you're self-aware, you can tell what is going on, and you can be able to be helped, or you can seek for help. But when you're not able to pinpoint where the challenges are, then the problem becomes much, much bigger. Then there's someone who has poor self-care, in that they're not able to be tidy, they're not able to keep their environment neat, they're not caring for themselves, they're exerting themselves even in activities or things that are harmful or dangerous. This is someone who could be going through a mental illness. And someone who keeps expressing hopelessness, helplessness every so often. This is someone who could be going through a mental illness. And it is important to always address mental illnesses earlier than later. So whenever you see one of these telltale signs, it is good to seek a professional support so that you can be able to overcome that challenges or work through your challenge so that you can function normally. So then, when we know all this, what are the best practices in addressing mental health issues? Diana, I'm sure you are waiting for this one here, because most people are usually like, you're telling us about mental illness, but what do we do about them? What do we do when we get to know that we have mental illnesses? So one of the things we need to be very much aware of, or to look out for, or to keep tabs with, is our self-awareness. How are you feeling? With the physical health, we normally will check how is your heart rate, how is your breathing, how is your temperature. You know, are you feeling hot? Are you having shivers? What are you feeling? So with mental health, the way you can tell is by your self-awareness. Are you aware of your environment? Are you able to hear? Are you able to see? Are you able to smell? Are you able to taste? The 5 senses that we normally have, those are the ones which ground you and bring about self-awareness, because you're in the know, in the here and now. So how self-aware of yourself? How self-aware of your feelings, of your emotions? How self-aware are you? Then the second thing is your self-care. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you sleeping too much or too little? Are you exercising, or are you not able to exercise a lot? Are you able to eat a balanced diet, or are you eating junk? Is your body craving for junk, or is your body craving for nothing at all? So when you look at your self-care, you're also able to tell whether you're mentally healthy or you're not, or your body is demanding for mental care a bit. Then, are you able to disclose what you're going through? All of us have that one close friend that we can talk to when we are going through problems. We call them our unpaid therapists. So, are you able to disclose what you're going through? Are you able to talk of your achievements? Are you able to appreciate the small goals or milestones that you have been able to achieve, even during the day? Are you able to diarize them? Are you able to tick off and say, I've been able to do this, this was my checklist today, I've been able to do this, or are you not able to do that? So when you're able to put down a checklist, when you're able to achieve your daily goals, then we say you're able to you're putting on the best practices. You're self-disclosing to yourself, you're able to self-disclose to people around you, you're able to diarize what you're supposed to do. Then the other thing we need to do is not to stigmatize those with mental illness. This is one of the practices we have been advocating, because it is the reason why most people don't seek for mental health support, because they are afraid of the stigma. Because our culture as Africans, we think that mental illness is a curse. Some people call it being bewitched. So there is a lot of stigma that goes with it, or people think that you don't have the capacity to deal with the challenges that life brings, or you're too soft. So that stigma is one of the things that has been pushing people from seeking mental health practices. So when we are able to reduce the stigma, then we are able to encourage ourselves and so many other people to seek this mental health support. Then are you able to exercise equality between physical health and mental health? There are a lot of you, and I know very well in the industry, that think physical health, you hit the gym, you will go to hospital, but when it comes to mental health, if it has been depressing, let me take a glass of wine, let me have a shot of whiskey, and that will calm it down. It postpones the problem, but does not entirely solve the issue, because you don't understand the root cause of it. And even if you understand the root cause of it, you don't have the coping mechanism to deal with it. So some of the best practices is also being able to have your own therapist, who you can walk through this journey, who you can talk to when you're facing a few challenges. They'll be able to put themselves in your shoes and be able to help you or challenge you to overcome the challenge you're going through. Then you also need to educate yourself about mental illnesses. Get to know what you're feeling. If it is depression, what are the other coping mechanisms you can practice? Who do you know has gone through depression and they are doing well in their life? Because it's not a life sentence, it's not a death sentence. We all get by. Even I, as a professional in the field, have my bits of anxiety. Sometimes I'll go feel like depression is coming in and I know what I need to do. So I encourage all of you that when you're feeling these things, it's good to seek for professional help so that you can be able to overcome. And it's good to also take care of your mental health. Then you need to choose empowerment over shame. This is if you're the one going through it, because we are very good at telling other people what they need to do. If you're the one going through a mental health challenge, don't be ashamed of it. Don't cow down. It is important to go out there to seek professional help, to talk about it. If it is, we have a lot of champions, a lot of people who have been mental health champions, talking about depression, talking about anxiety, and I know it comes with your profession. Be able to talk about it so that you can encourage even the people you're trying to bring up in the field not to feel shame with it. I've talked about seeking professional help and then also having regular mental health checkup. Now, the same way we are told, you go see a dentist twice a year. If you have any other physical health condition, you know how many times you see your specialist. With mental health, it is important, even if you feel you're very comfortable, to seek mental health professional support twice a year, just like your dental visit. It is important because your psychologist will be able to challenge you to check on what are the issues that you probably have been going through, but you're not very aware of. Then, in a time like this, when there is a pandemic, what do you do? How do you support someone with a mental health problem? And I know when COVID-19 was first reported, we all went through anxiety. I know some people who went through depression. So how do you deal, or how do you respond to your mental health during a pandemic? If you're a survivor, you need to check for symptoms of depression. And what are the symptoms of depression? You'll find that you don't have energy to go to work anymore, to set goals anymore, to relate with people. You're having sleep disturbances, and you're not able to articulate what you want to do very well. You need to check out for these symptoms. And if you can be able to pick one or two of them, then it's important to reach out for mental health support. Then the other thing you need to check out for is trauma or post-traumatic stress assessment. It is important because we say you go through PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder when you have gone through something that is traumatic, or when someone close to you that you're emotionally connected to is going through something traumatic. So it doesn't necessarily have to go through to be you who has gone through that. And how do you tell when you're going through PTSD or you're getting the reactions of trauma? You will get this when you have anxiety, outbursts of anxiety every now and then, when you're not able to sleep or you keep getting frightening memories or dreams that are making you not sleep well, when you keep fearing for the worst, so you're afraid of the future. It could be because you have that fear, or you are going through PTSD. Then you need to give special attention to those with pre-existing mental illness. So if you had a pre-existing, you have ever gone through depression, you've ever gone through anxiety, even if you have schizophrenia or any other mental illness, if it was already pre-existing, it is important to work with a professional, especially during this time. Then you also need to prepare the survivor or yourself for, because there will be stigmatization going on. And if it is, say, a case of COVID, when you go to seek medical attention, because there are very few facilities that will accept to take you in, there is definitely a feeling of stigmatization. So be very, very self-aware and work on your self-awareness, because if you're not self-aware, you'll be put down by the little less turn-off that comes your way. So it is important to work on your self-awareness, know your coping mechanism, know the triggers, that the things that make you get triggered or get anxiety or get angry, so that you don't put it out there when you're seeking support. Then with your family or with your friends, how do you help them? At this time, even with children, it is important to talk to them at their level. Let them know what is going on, and prepare them on the survival mechanism. So you need to psychoeducate them and yourself, have some self-care routine, and also know how to deal with stigma. You also need to know how to deal with loss and grief, because it will come at one point or another during a pandemic. It can happen to you, or it could happen to someone close to you, and it is loss at the same time. So it is important to be very ready for this. You also need to go through assessment and management of anxiety. So you can use your internet to learn how to manage anxiety, learn meditation techniques, how you can deal with when you start feeling anxious. Breathing exercises are one of the best practices out there. Also, looking out into nature, looking out into the horizon can help centralize your mind and reduce the sense of anxiety as you prepare to go seek mental health support. Then stress management. Everybody has gone through a crisis or a challenge at one time or another in their lives. And when you look at how you have been able to manage the previous crises, then when you have this situation, you will be able to deal with the stress. So look at your previous achievements. What were the modalities or means that you employed to manage the stress? What can you borrow from your previous achievements so that you can manage this stress? Then borrow from professional, borrow from fields, join groups that are talking about managing stress, managing anxiety, managing a crisis, to know what is the best response to deal with. And when you're self-aware, when you've dealt with your mental health, then you're able to be a more productive person in the society. So that is my presentation for you today, and I'll be ready to take in any question, Diana, that may come in. Asante sana.
Oh, thank you very much, Nancy, for that great presentation. For those who just joined in, I'm on a beach somewhere. Anyway, it's just a background to calm you guys down, at least to stop being